Buenos días a todos, bienvenidos, gracias por estar aquí. Mi nombre es Nicolás Fichtel, soy secretario de la AAI, Asociación de Autores de Iluminación, que junto con OISTAT, que es la Organización Internacional de Escenógrafos, Técnicos y Arquitectos Teatrales, y por supuesto AFIAL, son organizadores del evento de hoy en concreto, que inaugura el ciclo de conferencias en AFIAL 2016. Muy brevemente os voy a presentar a Yaron Abulafia, que es el invitado que tenemos hoy. Es un conocido internacionalmente diseñador de iluminación que ha hecho múltiples producciones, cerca de más de 200 producciones de danza, de teatro, de espectáculos, conciertos y ha recibido varios premios internacionales. Y hoy está aquí para presentarnos, hablarnos de su trayectoria, de su trabajo y para presentarnos el libro The Art of Light on Stage, que está basado en una tesis que escribió él en la Universidad de Groningen, en Holanda. Ha trabajado con compañías muy conocidas como Netherlands Dance Theater, Rambert Dance Company de Londres, Stats Ballet de Berlín, en fin. Es una amplia lista y nadie mejor que él mismo para contaros acerca de su trayectoria y su libro. Por favor, Yaron, cuando quieras.
Good morning. I have to stand here. Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and I feel it's a privilege to present you some of my work and also my academic work here at AFIAL. I want to thank first to AFIAL for this kind invitation with the support of OISTAT Spain and the president of OISTAT, Mr. José Luis Ferreira, and for AAI, the Spanish Association of Lighting Designers, Mr. Nicolás Fichtel. I'm very happy to share with you some of the ideas that I have about the different functions that light has on stage, as well as more advanced ideas about light in contemporary theater, in the theater of post-drama. We'll get to this part later in my talk when I will discuss the book. Maybe just a little bit to add about the background of me as a lighting artist. I started as a visual artist, as actually a painter and sculptor. And when I was 18, 17, I realized that actually light is the medium that I would like to work with. That light and atmosphere and the way I can affect the imagination of spectators is more appealing to me than material paint or sculptures. But still, I was thinking about light as a tool to create installations. So the stage was never, for me, taken for granted as the stage legs and the backdrop and everything, the very traditional way, and repertory lighting plans that most big companies, especially dance companies or opera houses, usually offer us lighting designers, were not appealing to me to work with. I always try to push the boundaries and to really start from the image I would like to create, and not from what the theater offers me. So the process starts with thinking about what does the light have to do, what does light have to make us feel or think about, which kind of associations I would like to evoke with light or sensation, and then thinking how to make it technically. So it never starts with a symmetric lighting plan, side lights, backlights, and so on. I would like to share today two pieces that I designed one is in Staatsballett Berlin, the open square, where you will see very soon that the lighting design is very non-conventional, not traditional, And the second piece is actually, it's performed here in Spain. It was created before for Amsterdam and for Rambert, but Nacional Compañía de Danza here performed it, and this will be the second piece that I will show just bits of it today. I will start with a trailer of the Open Square from Berlin, the Komische Oper Berlin, where, the Komische Oper in Berlin. The piece is called The Open Square by choreographer Itzi Galili, and costumes, wonderful costumes by Natasha Lansen, original music by Percosa. It's a group of 4 musicians from the Netherlands that work mainly with percussions, but here they composed a big composition for the entire orchestra of the Komische Oper. What is really striking is that, you will see soon, part of the performance was done with a time code, with very accurate lighting transitions. Hundreds of cues were programmed to be operated, to be called in very specific time, most of them in 0 seconds. Now, how to make this with live orchestra playing, with the dancers dancing to the sound of this music. It was quite a challenge. This for the house and for the ballet. You will see also the lighting is very not a traditional ballet lighting. Let's start with a short video of the Open Square, and I will tell more about it afterwards. If you could please dim the light. Thank you. It is a rehearsal, by the way, so the mistake with the dancer was fixed later on. So, this was a short video, just to show several photos here that can show a better quality of the images. If you could just please kill these two Fresnels, because it's quite dark there. Thank you. So actually, the engagement with the public starts already at the lobby, at the foyer of the opera. Pairs of dancers approach audience members, and they greet them for coming to the performance this evening and ask them if they can take a photo with them as a souvenir. Later on, these photos are used on stage, as you saw in the walls section, with this big room made of power frame. And then on stage arrives this dancer and starts talking to the public. It sounds like a speech. He says that it is a 700 show this evening with the company, and so on. And from this, what seems to be like a normal speech, which is very carefully directed, starts the sequence of the performance. Just in view of time, I will run very quickly in order to reach all the things I want to show you today. This is a better photo of the first section that you saw with the puppets. We called it the puppets, with the puppeteer that is releasing himself. By the way, in the speech, the dancer also addresses the relationship between dancers and choreographer, so also the politics within the art world is mentioned there. And then with this association in mind, you see the image of the puppets with the puppeteer that manipulates all these bodies in the space. This is another photo from the side of the puppets. And just to show you very quick sketches that I sometimes do, not in order to present them very roughly, very quickly, to think about light in graphic terms. Here, for example, I thought about the spiral heaters. It's a very old-fashioned machine, you know, like that generate heat and also red light. So I thought about hanging such. In another piece, I also used flea burners that are creating purple, violet light, pale violet light. And all these things bring associations, context, by the way we use these objects in daily reality, and here differently in a poetic context on stage. Another example, I thought about a grid. By the way, the piece was called The Open Square. The design included 36 squares, but about 2 months before the premiere, I heard from the opera house, sorry, we cannot focus 36 squares in the Komische Oper. So what you saw eventually with circles was a compromise. But this was, for example, an idea with gobos, creating frames like rooms or different cells so dancers can dance inside and with some saving lamps above. Eventually, I did use the system of the bulbs that were hanged above the stage. This is the solo, and what I didn't show you in the video is that when this dancer ends her solo, the bulbs start very slowly moving to the sides. Actually, dancers between the stage legs, invisibly, pull very slowly the black electricity cables. And then they appear on stage with the bulbs and do the section that you did see in the video. It was a very magical, very meditative, slow section with this adagio music. And the choreography obviously had to consider the cables and how to hold the bulb if you let the bulb fall, how to secure it with the cable. Everything was done with the, working with the technology. And in the time code section, we don't follow the movement of the dancers. Actually, it's the dancers that follow the tempo that dictates the changes of the lighting. And it has been done with a click track, so the conductor hears in one ear, in one headset, a sound like sometimes the letters for the bars, and he has to conduct the orchestra according to this tempo. So there is no room for interpretation in this particular section. And the orchestra will obviously play according to the tempo of the click track, and the dancers will react to the orchestra. But the lighting will be operated as well by the click track. So the click track has all the codes. Another photo from this section with the bulbs. And the walls with the photos of audience members. So it's a very festive evening, very eclectic, very diverse. Different characters for different scenes. This was an idea for Gobo about the frames that I showed you before and some rendering. I usually don't use rendering softwares, but in this case I tried something to show something to the company and different possibilities with it. And all these, all these specials had scrollers, 36 scrollers, that we actually cut special order of colors and specific colors for this production. And I differentiated sometimes between gender of one line and another, if it's a line of female dancer and male dancers, or vertical, horizontal, in different colors. And for each scene, in these 20-something minutes, for each scene, there was or one single color or two different colors that were just next to each other. So in the scroller, they move very quickly from one frame to the other. And this is example how I worked with the choreographer and the rehearsal director. On one side, on the left, you see dancers. And with my marks, I marked the cue numbers and the time code. We programmed all the cues in advance, 2 months before the premiere in Berlin, the beginning of April 2012. And all the cues were already in with their time code, with the right palette for the color, and it was very easy to decide, oh, no, actually we want a different combination of colors in the scroller, so I thought about an alternative. Everything was done with intensity palettes, so very easily I could change, because we are talking about more than 200 cues just for 20 minutes. So everything had to be programmed very efficiently. And the time, as you know, in opera houses is extremely short. And this lighting plan was hanged especially for the open square. So there was very, very short time. This is, for example, a list of time codes, minutes, seconds, frames for each cue. And again, here it's really just for me. It's not, there is no beauty in it, but it's more about the idea how one image developed into another, a top view with light on the stage, and how every image is marked in a number, and there is a little story about the transition and the timing of it and everything. But what I'm trying to say is that when you come to the theater and you start thinking only in the theater about what the light should do, you are running out of time. You have to have a very clear idea, which we'll get to it later. It's what I call in the book dramaturgy of light, a clear idea, light motifs that develop in time and so on, and really have a clear plan about how every moment in the performance should be lit, what is the role that the light has to play. Like a performer, light is a performer, is really the sculpture of space. It's not a decoration, it's not only illumination. Yeah, we'll get to it when I speak about the book. What brings me now to the second production, Sab, that in the short version was called Sab and was also performed here in Spain by National Compañía de Danza. And the full evening was the Casualties of Memory. I would like first to show you a short trailer of Compañía de Danza, and then show more about this production. Okay, so Sab. Sab was choreographed by Itzik Galili as well. This is a wonderful choreographer, one of the most diverse and creative choreographers that work nowadays, because every piece looks very different, has a different color, different tone, different flavor. Again, with costumes by Natasha Lansen and the music by Michael Gordon, Weather One. Maybe to show very quickly a lighting plan and speak a little bit about the lighting elements in this production. We spoke, Itzik and me, about what this piece is going to be like at the very beginning. And the lighting plan started, to emerge. The lighting plan was actually almost complete while he started making the piece in the studio. So we thought about a visual idea that can work for such a piece, for such content, for such atmosphere. The music was already known. And then we decided we are going to work with these elements that were created in advance to the choreography. So there were several lighting elements. I want to introduce them here. You see on the edges of the stage there is a blue frame. I don't need a light here, it's okay. There is this blue frame that was done by profile spots, normal conventional lighting, but everything is really measured to centimeters. So, for example, here, all vertical frames were 247 centimeters, all the horizontal 275 for a stage of 14 meters wide. So technicians have to really tape the stage before focusing, hang the profile spots just above the center of each rectangular light, and then we start focusing. So there was one frame that came from above, and the video didn't show it, but I will show some photos, really with pillars, very architectonic, very heavy, or kind of triangles that surround the stage all around. In this image, you can see, for the beginning of the piece, a sort of a crosses, like a crown, actually, we created with 5 different parkans. The color was very pale green, fluorescentic green, 241, Lee 241 or 219, something like this. Very pale, it looks quite filmish, cinematic, coming from above. As a decision, we didn't use any side lights in this piece. We wanted the light to come from above to create these shadows on the face, really top lights. And most of the light was very harsh, based on parkans, hard light that creates strong contrasts. That with the shadows in the eyes and under the nose, and in the neck will be very, very black. So what you saw on the video was very similar to how you could see it on stage. It's not just the camera that had strong contrast. This is a set of top lights with the same greenish color, individually controlled. So this is how the piece starts, quite dark, quite small space, intimate. Starts with a solo, then joins another man, and they start their duet. Here in this photo you see for the first time we have these active sun strips. This was another frame that surrounded the entire stage. 500 channels, 500 bulbs, individually controlled for dynamic motion effects, very soft, very slow. But it was all about creating an environment that is very unfriendly, very depressive, very heavy, very challenging for the dancers. You see, they act like gladiators. They fight against some invisible force. Light maybe was the force that they clashed with because it metamorphoses the space so in such a dominant way. And here I found a nice critique from United Kingdom. Sub is a train that starts to go and just keeps on running. Well organized, juxtapositions of chaos and order, storm and calm, which leave you on the edge of your seat. The piece is set for 7 masculine dancers, reminiscent of gladiators in the battlefield, exploding of testosterone, strength, and elegance, and sprinkling a pinch of skillful capoeira with high speed and precision. They are hunted, perhaps traumatized, by an invisible enemy. And the light plays the role of a force majeure by metamorphosing their surrounding and their look, the look of the dancers. The 7 men dance for all they are worth, taking risks with their own force and in last-minute catches. In this photo, you can see part of the frame on the side of the stage with these triangles of light that I mentioned earlier. And before finishing with this project, I would like to bring this critique as well from the UK that was published in the website Writing About Dance by Nicholas Mintz. And I quote him, "One thing that can be seen from above is pattern. Fortunately, there is plenty of that in Itzik Galili's Sub. And the lighting by Yaron Abulafia is particularly sculptural. The scene is set for a work that is in turn hard-edged, nervy, and menacing. These qualities are laid down on each layer of music, choreography, and lighting, giving a sense that Sub has been choreographed in light as much as in movement. Abulafia has created shadows on the stage in which a line of dancers will lurk while duet or a trio takes place in the light. So dancers are coming into the light and out of the light, appearing and disappearing just as we want. The dancers never seem to exit. They glide instead or into the dark light. That's a very interesting experience of the critique, disappearing into a dark light, a feeling of constant intense activity. Here you can see just a long shot of the stage. It's taken from a DVD, so the quality is not so amazing, but you can see part of the specials that I showed before, the 3 lines, the frame just without the downstage area, and part of the active sun strips. And this is just a rehearsal photo. It could really look in this image. You don't see some of the dancers don't wear the costumes here, but when you have the frame around done with ETCs, and everything is dark except of just one special inside for the soloist at the back, it looks like a black hole, like a void. Very strong moment in the piece. This is just to show a little bit of the dangerous choreography. Really, they fight. They could easily get injured in this piece. It's about getting so exhausted and rising into a climax in the piece and then dropping. And then another climax appears that is even more severe and higher than the previous one. And it always seems to be even more intense than what it was before. You know, in this scene, for example, with covering your head from above, and the light is so dramatically coming only from above, and sculptural, three-dimensional, it feels as if every beam, with the use of a haze, is tactical, almost tangible. You can even touch it almost. And with these kind of movements, the interaction between light and dance becomes something very significant, very symbolic. And in this last moment of sub, in some companies, I think it has to do with the quality of the filters. But in some companies, like here in Spain and also in London with Rambert, the filters start to burn because the heat is going up from the active sun strips downstage, and the dancers put their hands like this and they lean, and the filters start to burn and it starts raising smoke. And it seems as if it's a moment, you know, as if they reached hell. And just very quickly into the transformation from sub to the following sections of the full evening version. Basically, all the active sun strips were motorized, were connected with black steel wires to 11 different fly bars, connected to computer. This is a Turin production in the Netherlands. So every day, the dance company of Amsterdam, I mean, now I'm jumping to the full-length version of the piece. In Amsterdam, they toured the same piece, sub, with some extra scenes, and flew over all these active sun strips, and they toured every day to a different city. So you start in the morning, you connect everything, at 5 o'clock you deliver the stage. See how complex it was. This is just a rehearsal photo, but everything, all these active sun strips were actually separate pieces. And the very first moment, there is a blackout, and I lift the active sun strip, the frame, slightly higher, and then lit inside, and bring the light in the frame just very, very low, very softly. And it seems to you as if the dancers are underground, because we established a horizon of the stage in the men's section, and then suddenly it moved. You don't see it in action. You see just the new angle, and it makes you feel as if a bit disturbed. And it moves very slowly. The motion is very slow. I just want to show you here, there were 10 lines of aircraft lamps, ACLs, low voltage, very narrow beams. And I want to just reach here, you see a motion, just a shot with the effects in the sun strips. The intensity is slowly changing. But what is really interesting to show is the moment this dancer takes the book from the technician, I will not get into it, just to show you something that the light has been doing, then we see only the couple with a special, and the frame breaks. This is a stage of 14 on 11, 14 meters wide on 11 meters deep. And all these ACLs that are hanged in diagonals with wires and so on slowly go up to the stage tower, 25 meters high, and these sun strips, some of the pieces are 6 meters long, some are 5 meters long. They are really as if they are swimming in the water, moving extremely slowly. You hardly notice. Sometimes it's a centimeter per second, or half a centimeter per second. And there is a solo with text and dance that lasts about 20 minutes inside a limbo. And this kinetic sculpture was created by the active sun strips. This is just an example. These are the same active sun strips that you saw in the men section, laid on the floor. Okay. To end up this talk, I would like to introduce just a very short part from the book, The Art of Light on Stage. And to start with, I would like to tell you that I was born in Israel and went to study scenography and theater in the Netherlands. And the theater tradition in Israel was very similar to the theater in England. Narrative-based, quite illustrative to the play. The play was the main force of the performance, not so much the visual. So more close to set design than to the ideas about scenography. And also lighting-wise, it was very similar. So I went to the Netherlands and saw contemporary theater, more influenced by German theater, Flemish theater, that was far more visual and far more suggestive, and sometimes there was no play, sometimes there was a literature piece that was directed on stage, or no text at all, just a visual performance. And I didn't know how to engage with it. And I thought even more how to design it. If I'm asked as a designer to join a group of a theater group in the Netherlands. And then I started to research what is this theater that is called post-drama, post-dramatic theater, where text is not the main engine. And the book is about that. The book is about new tendencies in lighting design, new trends. And I bring in the book examples and analyze examples of performances from Robert Wilson, Romeo Castellucci, Heiner Goebbels, Yossi Wheeler, and others. So it's really about what happens today in lighting design. And in order to get my PhD, I had to build a theoretical framework. And how to analyze light design, how to speak about what light does in a performance, not in a technical, from technical perspective, but more from the creative side. So this is what I would like to show here today. Yes, this is really the core, the heart of the new framework, a new method for the analysis of the creative role that light is playing. And if you look from the bottom to the top, narrative, character, and so on, the higher we go, the light is more independent and is not illustrating the things that the text already brings. In the mainstream theater, in most of the world, most of lighting designs are supporting the text, supporting the narrative. And this is really the bottom. This is the more serving position of lighting design, supporting the sense of time and space, creating fictions, creating illusion. For example, in this production, Madame and Butterfly from Robert Wilson, we see an afternoon scene in the fields, and downstage you see, in Madame and Butterfly, you see Pinkerton, and it's just the preparation for the marriage. And you see the light makes a kind of, a daylight, the sky is bright, and the fields are kind of straw color and so on. This is a very illustrative level still. But Robert Wilson is definitely not an illustrative artist. He is doing something very, very sophisticated in this act. We start with this, we believe it. He establishes the space in a very realistic way, loyal to the narrative, and then in the first entrance of Butterfly, Butterfly is a Japanese lady, for whoever doesn't know the story, and Pinkerton is an American man. He's a Navy officer, and he is in Japan. He wants to get married, but not really out of love. Butterfly believes that this marriage will make her happy and will also be her maybe exit, way out to the Big Apple. So we see the first entrance of Butterfly, and this is a total different image from what Wilson creates earlier. Actually, Wilson, in this moment, disappears the floor. So the floor is it's like a black void. And he shows Pinkerton watching. We see his back on the left of the photo. And Butterfly is lit like an angel. She sings how happy she is, but we, the audience, we know already how miserable she is going to be, because Pinkerton, he already sang about his real intentions. So basically, the light tells us, the audience, something that we already heard about the future of Butterfly. And this is how light can give us more information about a character, about the psychology, about the mental situation or the human condition of a character. Here, the agony, the sadness of Butterfly is from the future, is already presented here by the light. So the light tells us something that will happen later on to the character. Okay? There are different ways to relate to a character. Also, in a more walking with the narrative hand in hand. And let's say we start a play when everything is very bright, pastel-like, warm, and the more we progress, troubles happen, the situation escalates, and the lighting becomes more fragmented, shadowy, gives a different look to the performers. So different ways to relate to a character, and here Wilson gets this effect by the contrast between the first image and the second image. I write about it much more in length in the book, specifically about this image, so whoever wants to read more about this production can find more in the book. The third level, we progress really more far from the illustration. And here, the designer becomes more central in making an interpretation, a very personal interpretation of the lighting designer concerning the piece. When a look of light refers to the theme of the piece or dramatic action, if it's a play, then we go really deep into what is under the text. A play about Hedda Gabler, let's say, is not literally about the events that happen in the play. The play is covering, it's like the skin of an animal, to refer a little bit to Poetics of Aristotle. It's like seeing the animal from outside, but the themes and the dramatic actions are the skeleton from inside. So when the light goes really deep to what the scene is about, what the play is about, for me, the lighting designer, what do I want to emphasize regarding the play? Then this is even more, we use the play as a material, and we are not serving the text. We use it and we comment on it. So this is maybe the third level, even more loose, more liberated from the serving position of, the narrative. And I want to give an example. This is another piece that I write about in the book. The piece is called Rechnitz. It's written by Elfriede Jelinek, a Nobel Prize winner, and directed by Yossi Willer, one of the most known theater and opera directors nowadays in Europe. And it was done, created for the Münchner Kammerspiele. By the way, the lighting design is by Max Keller. Probably some of you know Max Keller and his wonderful book, Light Fantastic. So, Rechnitz is about a story, a real story, that happened in a little town in the Austro-Hungarian, former Austro-Hungarian Empire, where the Duchess gave a festive dinner, a party for the highest milieu of the city, for the academics, for the artists, for the politicians. And the highlight of this dinner was killing of 180 labor Jews at the very end of Second World War. And the secret of Rechnitz is, by the way, until today, no one knows where these bodies were buried. This is a secret of the elderly people who still live there. No one wants to be responsible for what happened. And this is really a literary piece that Jelinek wrote, and it is presented by 5 performers, but there are no characters, and there is no action. It's a flow of ideas, landscape, of associations, of facts, of opinions, contradicting all these, and so on. And in this moment that you see in the photo, the audience hears 180 shots recorded. And these performers put the headset in order to, not to hear. And you see some of them are smiling, some of them don't really care. There is no empathy there. But what was striking in this moment is that not only the lighting was a very flattening HMI coming from a low position and making they look very white, and you see no shadows almost. You see the shadows behind them on the wall is as tall as they are. So the light is coming on almost from the height of this 1 meter above the stage or so. And another thing that was happening is the house lights of the auditorium faded in. And then I remember how I was sitting in the audience and I could see all these backs of spectators in front of me as if they are the people who are getting murdered, as they are pushed into this massacre, into this killing, into this mass murder. And no one in the public stood up and left. No one dared, especially because they are lit. And the audience becomes part of the image. And in the context of the shooting and of the people who did nothing to stop this killing, similar. In this context, the light in the auditorium in the middle of the performance and the HMI is coming, flattening, making them look like ghosts. All of it connected to the themes of this literary work about keeping the secret or exposing the secret. Much more you can read in the book. I very quickly continue to atmosphere or emotion. I'm really 2 minutes. Atmosphere or emotion, well, many critics or theater scholars, students, lighting designers, we all speak about how atmospheric light can be. But in this book, I'm writing about how light can create atmosphere or affect emotion in a way that we are changing our behavior even, not being passive, sitting in the auditorium and feeling something towards the stage, but in a way that we use our imagination because of light, use our imagination and create different interpretations to what we see. So, for example, a very famous piece by Olafur Eliasson, The Weather Project, was presented in Tate Modern in the main hall there. This piece is made actually by a half circle of low pressure gaslight, sodium. Half a circle full of fixtures of lamps behind the plastic perspex, and the ceiling is full of mirrors, so you can see yourself, and the upper part of this orange circle is basically a reflection. It's not real, it's not there. And there is smoke, and it's in London. The exhibition was between November, I think, to March. There were 2.3 million visitors watching this or experiencing this piece. And have a look how people behaved in Tate Modern. Although the light doesn't generate any heat, people fell toward it as if it's a sunset in a kind of a tropical area, and they lay on the floor. They behave in a very different way, not so appropriate to a gallery. And the light here is not generating any heat. It's more the associations that we have towards the image of the sun, and so on. I've been writing a lot about this and more in the book, so I just suggest you to have a look on this. In order to finish this, sensation of light itself is when lighting designers emphasize the technology, but technology is used in a poetic way, in a creative way. And in this famous piece by Heiner Goebbels, Stifters Dinge, this is a theater of no performers, only machines. Robotics, light, sound, smoke, water, but no man or woman are in the space. And here there is just one single light from behind, hitting the very shallow swimming pools, 3 swimming pools, and gauzes, curtains, go slowly up and down. There are 4 of them, and creating beautiful, beautiful patterns of water movement. You can find it on YouTube. It's really mesmerizing. It's hypnotizing. And this is a projection of a painting on the same space of Stifters Dinge, and you can actually notice no detail of the painting unless there is a board, small board, white board that is traveling in the space, going slowly from side to side, up, diagonal, and you can see, you can distinguish details only on this. You are limited, your image is influenced by the topography, the image of what we see, what we perceive, is influenced by how the light falls on this, on the topography of the space, and there is kind of frustration, setting of tempo by the movement of the board and so on. Very, very sophisticated use here of light by Heiner Goebbels and Klaus Grunberg. The last one, open meaning, is the most complex, really the most complex. And I could speak about it an hour, but we have to leave some time for questions. Very, very shortly, this is when we don't know what light is about. We feel that it is structured in a very thought of way. Everything was considered really to the smallest detail, but we cannot pinpoint a meaning. We are in a search after meaning. And this is an example of James Turrell piece, Brigitte Bardot in Wolfsburg Museum, his biggest interior space, where you stand in front of an endless space, and the light is changing extremely slowly and changes your mood, and you lose sense of time. You are unable to evaluate how deep is the space, how close is it. It's a very spiritual, very sensational experience. And again in Rechnitz, the same image that I spoke about with the 180 shootings, above the woodwork there is this green area that reminds a little bit the quality of Turrell lighting. And you see how different the upper part of the space is from the lower part. And this clash of qualities, this contrast, is very interesting. There is much more written about it in the book, but I will have to stop here and leave some time for questions about anything that you would like to ask me about. Professional, of course. Yes.
Hola, no sé si me oyes la traducción. Hola, hola. Sí. Bueno, como nadie pregunta, voy a preguntar yo, pero hay muy poquito tiempo porque tenemos que pasar a la siguiente conferencia. Pero quiero hacerte una pregunta. Conozco muy bien el trabajo de Ohad Naharin, porque he tenido la suerte de colaborar con él y de conocer a una persona, su iluminador, que es un buen amigo y supongo que amigo tuyo también, que es Bambi. ¿Cuál es la influencia de Bambi en tu trabajo? Porque he visto cosas que me han recordado un poco. Quizá hay algo de influencia de Bambi en tu trabajo. Bambi el iluminador, no Bambi el Walt Disney.
Yes, yes. Bambi is indeed a friend, a colleague, and he was one of the first inspirations that when I saw his work for the first time, and especially the work that he made with a great director, Rina Yerushalmi, who makes a kind of theater that is also movement theater, dance theater. And his architectonic use of lighting was indeed one of the reasons that I actually wanted to explore lighting design. It happened when I think I was 16. So it was one of the triggers indeed. And I know a lot of his work and in touch with him. He's a good friend of mine. So indeed he was one of... Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Yes, any other question? It could be about a technical aspect of the work or more creative or about the book. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.